This video was sponsored by Brilliant. I have a discount for you to try them out at the end of the video, so stick around. This year, Xiaomi has released 32 different phones so far, under 3 different brands and 12 major series. That's not even counting regional variants, minor series, or Black Shark, a phone brand Xiaomi partly owns. But even if I count conservatively, the company is almost releasing one new phone every week now on average. With such a huge portfolio that is also bound to keep growing, you might think that surely they must have a system to reliably differentiate all of these products and clearly describe how they compare to each other. But no, they don't. It's all just chaos. The brands, the generations, the series, none of it ever seems to make sense and none of it is ever consistent. So in the third episode of my Thanks I Hate It series, I'll break down all of those inconsistencies, and at the end I'll also try to explain why the company is successful regardless. So I started working on this video with the original goal of trying to explain Xiaomi's confusing naming. I thought there had to be some kind of logic that separated a Mi phone from a Redmi phone and the Redmi phone from a Redmi Note phone, for example. I just had to look hard enough to find that system, right? Because when you look at individual phone names in a vacuum, they usually appear reasonable at first, with most consisting of a brand name, a series and the generational indicator, and a few modifiers at the end. Not too different from, say, an iPhone 12 Pro or a Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. But when you zoom out a bit and look at their whole portfolio, they completely stop making sense. In total, Xiaomi has released 17 phones with dual names, by which I mean one phone being launched under 2 different names, typically based on regional availability. They have released one phone under 3 different names, incredibly enough 2 of which are in the same country. They have used 10 different terms for describing a phone, a lite version of another phone, 8 different terms for describing a pro version of another phone, 3 different letters indicating a phone is a generational upgrade over the last version, and they have had 3 different ways of saying it's a bigger version of another phone. I will collectively call all of these Pro, Lite, Max, Ultra, SDX things descriptors. And what's amazing is that not only does Xiaomi just have an insane number of them, they're also used in completely conflicting ways. Like the letter S, for example. A capital S was used in these phones to signify the next generation of an existing model. So the S in Mi 1S meant that it was a successor to the Mi 1, the same way the iPhone 6S was a successor to the iPhone 6. Makes sense. A little weirder is that for these models, a small s is used to describe the same thing, a generational upgrade, but really weird starts with realizing that the Redmi 3S isn't a successor to the Redmi 3, it's a lite version that came out almost at the exact same time, while the Redmi Note 9S is actually a higher spec version of the regular Redmi Note 9. Add to that S also exists as a series, like the Redmi S2, which by the way was also called the Redmi Y1 in some markets, and is also the only phone in the S series, by the way, and you quickly arrive at the point where the humble S can mean literally anything. A successor, a lite, or a pro version of an existing phone, or a whole series. Another fun example would be the word Max, which usually means bigger, except in the case of the spectacularly named Redmi Note 9 Pro Max, which is the exact same size as the Redmi Note 9 Pro. Or even more infuriatingly, the letter X. What on earth could a simple X mean? Well, the Redmi 3X seems to be a lower spec version of the Redmi 3. The Redmi 4X seems to be the same phone as the Redmi 4, just released in different markets. The Redmi 10X exists without a Redmi 10 ever having been announced, but I assume the X here signifies that they are high-end models. And as far as I can tell, the Mi 5X and the Mi 4X aren't related to the Mi 5 or the Mi 6 at all. They came out a year and a half later and with no overlap in design or specifications. So again, the X sometimes means lite, sometimes means pro, and sometimes doesn't actually refer to another phone. And I could go over all the other letters that Xiaomi uses for their phones. Trust me, they are all very confusing, but I actually want to stick with these 2 phones, the Mi 5X and the Mi 6X, because these 2 actually reveal a whole other level of chaos over all of this. So you might know that these 2 phones also exist as Android One versions, where instead of Xiaomi's own MIUI, they run stock Android, and they're called the Mi A1 and the Mi A2. So take a guess. What would the MIUI equivalent of the A3 be called? Surely the Mi 7X, right? No, that one is called the Mi CC9E. It's not even related. And actually these dual and triple named phones, these are actually the best examples of how none of the brands, none of the series, and not even any of the generations are actually meaningful. Take the Redmi Note 9 for example, which in China is called, wait for it, the Redmi 10X 4G. The same phone in two different markets is at once in the 9th generation and in the 10th generation. Once it's a Note phone and once it isn't. So do generations or the word Note actually mean anything? Or take the Redmi K series. The Redmi K20 is called the Mi 9T in some markets. The Redmi K30 is also known as the Poco X2, while the K30 Pro is also known as the Poco F2 Pro. In other words, what is supposed to be a single phone series is actually sold under all three different brands of Xiaomi, and under Poco even belongs to two different series. So do any of these brands or series have distinct visual identities or anything else that actually connects them? Or are they just a random collection of phones? And I could go on for days about stuff that doesn't make sense, like how the Redmi 8 Pro is both a Lite and a Pro version of the Redmi 8 at the same time, which is truly galaxy brain levels of naming, or how there are two different phones, both of which are called Note 9 Pro based on regional availability. And a million other examples. But the point is, nothing in Xiaomi phone names reliably tells you anything about the product. Any sort of separation that you feel between brands and series is probably just your brain trying to find patterns in chaos that don't really exist. And none of the descriptors like X or S or A can reliably tell you anything about the product. And while I originally wanted to just end this video here and just live with my frustration, I guess, I wanted to explain why Xiaomi sticks with such a weird naming scheme when it is clearly really confusing to customers. So in any company, there are two opposing priorities. One, companies like to have a centrally planned, consistent portfolio where you have a product for each price segment, consistent naming, release schedules, etc. Apple is likely the best example of this, even if they have become a little less consistent over time. And I think the new Nokia is fairly consistent here too. There are clear hierarchies, generation numbers, etc. The other priority is reacting quickly to specific threats or opportunities in the market. A new competitor, like Realme, launches a phone in your key market, stealing your market share. A new technology, like in-display fingerprint readers, become good enough to finally put into your phones. A carrier in the local market just rolled out 5G. Whoever reacts to these things the fastest will have a huge advantage. And those two priorities are actually directly at odds with each other. You can't react to local threats all over the world and have a globally consistent portfolio. You can't react to all the threats that pop up all the time and still maintain a predetermined release cycle. And you can't have consistent series and consistent naming if your strategy changes all the time. And I think what we are seeing here with Xiaomi is an extreme focus on priority 2. The company is basically saying, screw being consistent. Let's not even worry about that. The Android smartphone market, especially in China and India, is so competitive and so fast moving. The only way to win is to be agile and locally relevant at all costs, even if that means rebooting your entire product strategy every year or two. The job for any Xiaomi phone is not to neatly fit into some clean global portfolio and achieve continuity. It's to kick the ass of whatever Samsung, OnePlus, Realme, and all the others are up to right now. And names are probably chosen purely based on what a local Xiaomi brand manager thinks will compete best at launch in their market, not based on how they relate to past products. And while we, the people who try to make sense of all the things that are going on in the smartphone world, while we might find this confusing or infuriating, and while I do think Xiaomi sometimes goes overboard with what they're doing, I still think that overall, given how aggressive the Android smartphone competition is, choosing agility over everything else is probably a smart strategy. The smartest choice isn't always the most obvious one, but if being smart is your thing, I recommend checking out the fantastic courses over at Brilliant. Brilliant is like a gym for your brain, except this gym consists of beautifully crafted, interactive puzzles, each of which teaches you something new. For techies, the computer science learning path is especially fun as it lets you start with the foundations of computer science, including teaching you how algorithms and data structures work, as well as introducing you to programming using Python, and then moves on to concrete use cases like letting you learn how to build a search engine by teaching you about crawling, indexing, optimizing results, and loading speeds and whatnot. There are in-depth courses on cryptocurrencies and quantum computing, and my favorite one is the one on computer memory, which teaches you how both the hardware of computer memory works, as well as how software and programmers can access and optimize it. So if understanding how that RAM stick or the CPU cache in your computer actually works sounds interesting to you, and you want to learn it by solving thoughtful exercises instead of reading an encyclopedia, then head over to Brilliant. There is a free plan where you can try them out, but the first 200 people to sign up to Premium using brilliant.org/TFC, which I have of course also linked down in the description, will get 20% off their annual subscription. So check it out, happy learning, and I'll see you in the next video.